No state in the United States has more venomous creatures than Arizona. And no place in Arizona has more venomous animals than the Sonoran Desert. Here we have the most medically significant animals on the entire continent. So let's go and meet them. To maximize our chances, we'll split this into 3 sections: the lower desert, upper desert, and the foothills. And as we climb, so does the venom potency. As at our last stop, I'll introduce you to the drop-for-drop most venomous snake on the entire continent. I'm beginning in the lower deserts, where I'm meeting this little cutie, a baby western diamondback rattlesnake. Let's get you off the road. Oops, sorry. Here's a much larger adult. In Arizona, adult males average about 3.5 feet, with only the eastern diamondback rattlesnake being larger on average. But the largest western diamondback rattlesnake ever recorded was found in Mexico and measured 2,261 millimeters, which is about 7 feet 5 inches. The size of the snake also means that it can hold much more venom, with a yield on the upper end averaging out to about 250 milligrams per envenomation, with about an 80% chance of survival. I also came across a desert millipede, a camel spider that was after my soul, this tiny little baby western banded gecko, and a baby checkered garter snake, believe it or not. What the heck is this thing? It looks like a worm, but it's actually a snake called a western thread snake. If you're ever lucky enough to hold this animal, you'll soon find that its main defensive strategy includes writhing, pooping, and poking. The next venomous snake I found is this sidewinder. Its name is derived from how it moves, in this S-shaped pattern. This helps it minimize contact with the ground and thus keep this guy from burning up. Out in other parts of the desert, it's very common to see these guys just sitting out in the open in hopes of landing a tasty mousy or lizardy meal. Not as venomous as the diamondback, but a bite could absolutely still send you to the hospital, so watch your step. I also came across a regal horned lizard, which was weird since they're typically diurnal, and a bunch of desert night snakes. A mildly venomous species, meaning it does contain venom, but it has no fangs, and also its venom is pretty much harmless to people. But I'll show you what is venomous: this baby Mojave rattlesnake. It may not look like much, but you're looking at arguably the most venomous rattlesnake in the world. However, it's certainly not the deadliest. Between 1965 and 2007, 4 people died of Mojave bites, and half of those were from captive snakes. Nevertheless, the method by which venom is typically compared is called the LD50 rating. An LD50 rating is essentially the amount of venom measured in milligrams per kilogram of body weight it takes to be lethal for 50% of a test population, which are typically rats. So yeah, it's frankly a pretty unethical test, but luckily more computer modeling is used nowadays to find these values. And a western diamondback rattlesnake receives an LD50 rating of 1.1, and a Mojave rattlesnake is 0.18. And given that they have a venom yield of up to 150 milligrams, this snake definitely deserves your respect. But as we continue our journey through the desert, I'll introduce you to the snake that has, without a doubt, the most toxic rattlesnake venom in the world. Oh my goodness, that is the fattest scorpion I've ever seen in my life. I've moved my search to a wash in the upper deserts in search of some more friends. Arizona really has a fantastic collection of invertebrates, including the most tarantula species. Out here, the most common one is the Arizona blonde tarantula. Not particularly dangerous. Their venom is not any more potent than a bee sting. We also have Tucson bronze tarantulas out here. Here's one. Oh. Here's a fun little trio: a wolf spider, striped-tailed scorpion, and a tarantula all in one spot. I wonder if this red-spotted toad knows that I can totally see him. Anyway, let's move up even higher to meet the really venomous critters. I'm in the foothills of a much more larger mountain range. So even though it's desert at the bottom, the top receives much more rainfall, and thus there's much more water here, and therefore, frogs. Look at this weirdo. It's a Sonoran desert toad. The bumps on their side of the head are called parotoid glands, and in order to ward off predators, produce a poison from these glands. This poison is also known as 5-MeO-DMT, and it just so happens to be the most potent psychedelic known to humanity. Here we also have the most venomous scorpion species on the continent. the Arizona bark scorpion, the only scorpion that is considered medically significant, as there have been a few deaths attributed to this animal. Now here's a real beauty. This is a Sonoran coral snake. Highly venomous, but has never actually recorded a human fatality. Instead of biting, they have been documented doing something called cloacal popping, which is essentially defensive farting. Here's an example of it from a different species called a Chihuahuan hooknose snake. After walking around the desert some more, I finally came across what is technically the most venomous snake in the United States. This is Crotalus tigris, or the tiger rattlesnake, named after these crossbars of dark scales. And as you can see, this snake has a proportionally very tiny head, and therefore its venom capacity is much lower than in other species. Remember when I said the Mojave rattlesnake contains up to 150 milligrams of venom? Well, the tiger rattlesnake only has a venom yield of about 11 milligrams, but its LD50 rating is 0.06. So technically, just purely based on toxicity, this is the most venomous snake in the US. But its yield is just so low that it really doesn't pose that much of a risk to people. This tiny head and hypertoxic venom allows it to hunt lizards more effectively in its preferred rocky habitat, as the smaller head leads to more precise strikes and therefore a higher hunt success rate. And so to compensate for the loss of venom yield, the individuals with more toxic venom were able to pass on those genes and eventually lead us to the snake we have today. All right, thanks for watching. Hopefully this satiated your desire to see Arizona's unique critter friends. Now get out of here and go outside.